But first, before we start, I do want to just quickly introduce Dave Hogue, who I just brought up on stage, who is our next speaker. Dave is a design, I'm getting yelled at right now. Dave is a design lead on the Android team at Google in the Bay Area. I'm sure you've all heard of Google, a little scrappy startup that's doing some interesting things these days. He and his team are responsible for research and design for the engineering and data tools used to develop, test, build, release, and monitor the global Android device ecosystem. He's also lead for the Android AI and ML fairness team, responsible for helping to ensure that AI and ML features on Android perform in a fair and unbiased way. He lives near the ocean and in his spare time enjoys cooking, gardening, and does a really kick-ass setup for a panel beforehand, because I got to take notes from this guy. So I'm really excited to bring to the stage Dave Hogue. Thank you, Dave. Sorry, Potter.
Thank you. Thank you. So hi, everyone. Just a quick note for Mr. Potter, because I'm not seeing anything in the stream on my side. So hi, everyone. Welcome to FIT Spotlight AI. We've invited a panel of experts, leaders, and practitioners today, and we're going to discuss what everyone seems to be talking about lately, and that is artificial intelligence. After our conversation, we'll have a few minutes for questions from the audience, so please do add them to the Q&A as you are listening to our conversation today. Our discussion about AI today is going to touch on many topics, including what's the potential utility of AI, how may AI change the ways we work, what's the accuracy of AI, and how do we establish trust, and really just how smart is artificial intelligence really? All of our panelists have interesting perspectives, deep experience, and many ideas about how AI may change our work and our lives. And so please let me now welcome our three panelists today. First, we have Frincy Clement. She's joining us from Toronto, Canada. She's the Canadian Ambassador for Women in AI, where she leads strategic initiatives to inspire, mentor, and support women in AI. With 9 years' experience in the fields of telecom, IT, consumer goods, and education, she applies her experience, passion, and business acumen to build communities and drive positive change. In 2022, she was included in Canada's top 100 most powerful women, and in 2023, she was featured in the top 100 women advancing AI. Welcome, Frincy. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you, Dave.
We'll also be joined by Katherine Valenzuela, who is also joining from Toronto, Canada. She's the founder of the Good Citizen Studio, where she strives to imagine better futures and to use design to deepen our understanding of our relationship with the world and to create real and lasting change. She is a storyteller, and she has an eye on community and a focus on positive social impact, wellness, and improving people's lives. Welcome, Katherine. We're happy to see you.
Happy to be here.
And finally, we have Jason Theodor, who's joining us not from Toronto, but from a little bit farther north and a little bit more rural. He is in Prince Edward County, Canada. He's a creative consultant, designer, writer, speaker, and educator, and opinionated, who thrives at the intersections of art, design, and technology. His passion for imagination and innovation have led him to found morebetterdifferent.org, where he helps teams develop human-centered products by integrating new technologies and established design methodologies. Welcome, Jason, and it's good to see you again.
Thanks, David.
Now that we've met the experts, let's talk about artificial intelligence. I'd like to start with just one quick question for everyone here on the panel for you today. Really briefly, what was your first experience AI that made you say, wow? Feel free to speak up, no particular order.
Maybe I can go ahead and start
Sure.
the conversation here. So I'm a practitioner myself, and as I was transitioning my career into AI, there has been a lot of wow moments for me, especially when I try and implement something and magically it would give me the results that we were looking for, which we never expected. So those were the little wow moments for me. But if I look at overall over the period, I was always amazed at the way that AI has enabled healthcare, especially in the prediction of diseases or detecting patterns. And one of the most recent news that I was really amazed was there was a news about a paralyzed woman who was able to speak after 20 years of being paralyzed. So there were some electrodes attached to her brain, and they studied her patterns and signals and trained the model. And those signals were converted into voice. And those are some of the use cases that really create that impact, and more so that helps the humanity to move forward. And I'm always looking out for those kind of use cases.
Great.
So-
Those are fantastic examples. Thank you.
Mine's way less altruistic than that. It was really about mixing two disparate elements and seeing how well the AI could accommodate for it. And I don't think ChatGPT will let you do this anymore. But I remember one of the first things I ever typed in was a very spontaneous thing. Was something like rewrite the first book of the Bible, but in the style of Hunter S. Thompson, who's like this crazy gonzo journalist who wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So it was wild, and it was really, really funny, and it was really interesting. And I thought, this is crazy that it can actually understand exactly what these styles entail, and then put it together in such a incredible way.
Yeah. Yes. And Katherine, please.
Yeah, sure. So my first experience with AI that made me go wow would be the first time I saw that AI could be a very interesting and great creative partner. So AI has so far provided me for my creative process with prompts that guide it. So I think because of this, barriers to entry would be less so for people. And who knows, AI might actually make creativity more accessible in that regard.
Great, great. Thank you all. Thank you all. And it really starts to, what wowed you also gives us a sense of how you're thinking about AI and what you pay attention to, what's important to you, and how you use it in your work. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the topics that we mentioned. Frincy, I'm going to start with a question for you, because you have deep experience and have been working in the field of AI for a while now. It's been several years, and in the AI world, where everything is moving so quickly, that's like generations of work. So much right now is focused on generative AI, using AI to write for us, or to draw for us, or to do data analysis for us, or now even to generate music for us. But teams are working really diligently toward artificial general intelligence, AGI. Can you tell us what you think that path to AGI might be like, and why is AGI so different from the things that we're seeing today?
Sure. I mean, before I start my answer, I have to say I'm no expert in AGI, and not everybody is. It is all new, and new for us. So it's kind of a learning process as we are all together understanding and learning how things are happening. So just for the benefit of the audience, I just want to give what is AGI first, and then talk about it. So AGI is a concept where AI systems are able to behave or make decisions or react just like human beings, or even better than human beings. So that means they are able to learn, understand like human beings without being actually programmed for it. So, so so AI system in that case should be able to like learn and generalize across various domains, to achieve this desired form of AGI. So from what other experts say, like like Dr. Benjo, Dr. Hinton, those are like godfathers of AI. They initially used to predict that it would take us about 50 to 100 or more years to reach a state of like AGI, or even beyond that, superhuman intelligence. But now, with the recent advancements, they are saying that that has reduced to 5 to about 20 years. But before maybe we are actually ready to accept that, and ready to welcome that with our both hands. So some experts says that the recent advancements in this generative AI is the nascent stages of AGI. But to achieve AGI, AI must be able to apply the knowledge from a range of domains and process a humongous amount of data, And with the computation that we have today, it might not be that faster achievable. So those would be the barriers. The storage and the computation would be two barriers that would a little bit slow that down. But as AI system become more intelligent, they can also become more autonomous and less controllable. So there's another way that I've read about is um, brain emulation. So studying the brain and replicating the brain and putting that in a computational device and then mimicking the functionality of brain. That is another path that some researchers are working about it as well. But before all of that, I have just one question that we all need to answer is, are we even ready for it? Like now at this point, we are running behind, like our legal systems, our ethical frameworks, we are trying to play catch up with what is happening. So at a point where AI is able to not overpower, like, or behave even better than human intelligence. Before that, our laws and our governance, where we design, develop, and deploy, should be um, should be governed by some laws before it actually gets deployed. Today, the products are just deployed in the market, and we are just looking at it and excited about it, and then wondering how to regulate it. But we should have these regulations in place in order to make sure that the humanity is not impacted at a point where AGIs become a realization.
Right. So we have this huge side of potential, which is countered by a significant degree of risk as well. And does it feel to you like we're spending a lot of time discussing the potential and much less time thinking about how to be prepared for what we are making?
I would say that within this year, there has been a lot of discussions around responsible AI. Previously, responsible AI was never like a function within an AI system or an AI organization. Now people are looking out for it. They want it to be part of like responsible AI by design, privacy by design. So they want it to be part of it, and there's a lot of demand going on. But at the same time, um, the amount of investment and the resources that we spend on the R&D of these systems like generative AI or AGI, the same or more amount of time we should spend on building the system more robust, private, secure, and responsible. So I think that is something that we have to take as an action and implement from a regulation perspective and also from a corporate or an organization perspective.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Katherine, responsible AI is something that you think about and talk about also. And you have a perspective on responsible AI, not from the legal side, but on considering what is the impact and access for our users. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you have called the consequences of our work and how you are viewing what it means to be responsible AI?
So some of the biggest issues people face with AI right now is how certain things like biased algorithms can exacerbate inequality or unsustainable practices. So basically, it's kind of like a tricky thing for us right now as creatives about, to think about being liable for our work because of the nature of our work, where oftentimes we must do the work that is asked of us. But because I think that AI is starting to become so pervasive, and the issues that we need to address now, the further marginalization of groups of people, for instance, it can be critical to be responsive and responsible about like the consequences of our work. So definitely it is an opportunity to be more mindful of what impact our work does out there. So yeah.
And what do you think it means to be responsible? Like how do you, for your work or for the things that you watch for, what does being responsible actually mean? What does it look like for us to if we're going to use this in our work, for example?
I think that being responsible just means like being more mindful of the kind of work, being more mindful of the consequences of like our projects, for instance, and taking an assertive stance and feeling more empowered in terms of like how our work and just like
Mhm.
just being more mindful, I think.
Taking it's almost like Frincy was saying, we have to pause and think about what we are doing.
Yes.
And on one side, we have to pause and think about how we manage what we are doing, but we also have to pause and think about the potential consequences of what we are doing.
Exactly. And yes, exactly. So you also mentioned something about like it's not like when it comes to like our work, like it's not always ideal to like because AI is so pervasive. I think that historically, like particularly in like corporate situations, like um it has like for-profit driven motives have degraded our environment and created inequities. So I think it is definitely beneficial to approach our work from a more value driven perspective.
And being very aware of how the systems are being built, how they are being trained, who has access to those systems, how we identify and make corrections, or fail to make corrections. Right, right. Jason, this starts to cross over as we talk about creativity and our work, as Katherine was just mentioning. You like the idea of finding ways to augment creativity. And when Frincy was talking about artificial general intelligence and thinking more like humans, two of the things that often come up with that general intelligence is the ability to reason and the ability to be creative. And how does creativity fit into this for a room full of creatives? How does it work for us? How do we use it as a tool? What do we watch for?
So that's a really good question, but before I answer that, I just would like to say a happy birthday to ChatGPT, my assistant, um, my creative assistant. Um, I think it was like literally 1 year ago today that it was launched, and it kind of sent the world into another trajectory, you might say. Um, but to go back to your question about creativity, I mean, yes, creativity is what I think differentiates us as humans. It's something that's fairly unique to us that we need and want to explore, that we want to try new things. That's also a little bit scary when it comes to things like AI. And really quickly, before I answered the sort of active versus passive creativity element, I just wanted to touch on something that Catherine was saying too. Like when you think about uh, or when you try to think of other things that are similar in the sense that we use them every day, we take them for granted, they're ubiquitous, but they're ridiculously dangerous. Electricity comes to mind, right? It's like it's deadly if you do it the wrong way, and that's why we have building codes, we have universal standards, we have safety protocols, and we train people on how to actually use these things appropriately and correctly, especially for like setting up your house. And if you want to change a socket in your house, you go and you shut down the circuit breaker, or you could die, right? So I think like if we consider that and then say, okay, now this big sort of electric lightning bolt is coming for the creative industry. What do we do about that? How do we think about that? Um, for me, I I don't feel threatened. I feel bad for right now. I feel sympathy for juniors that are getting into the business, because right now it looks like how someone that hasn't found their voice, that hasn't found their sort of base talent set yet, that hasn't been able to grow. How do they compare themselves when you've got people that are just typing in a few things and creating an animation, or typing in a few things and um, but to me, it's about active versus passive. And what I mean by that is you either create or you are created, right? You decide how, as a human being, creativity is about intention. And as long as you have a strong intent, as in, I have an idea in my mind of what and how I want things to come together, you can use AI to assist you in making that happen, but don't just go with the default, right? Don't just accept what the output is uh, without having any input yourself, without having any thought. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. I mean, there were so many points in there. I like how you talk about it and you make an active and passive differentiation. You know, and I think when we look at a lot of what generative AI is now, is that it is on what we might consider a reactive side, or I guess it would be the passive side from your framing, where we tell it what we want and then see what comes out, and then we make value judgments on the quality of that output. And it's missing the key thing that you just said, and that was intent, right? Like there's the intent to create is different from the request to create.
And one of the earlier speakers, Dre LeBray, touched on that as well, where it's about being a poet and understanding, like having the language of design, of creativity, no matter what it is you're trying to make, if you can use the more appropriate language to describe the thing that you want the AI to assist you with, that's a skill in and of itself. That's not something that's innate. It's not like everyone knows design language. Not everyone knows what kerning is, or leading, or adding more white space. They wouldn't even know how to use those terms. So I think if you still are a creative person and you're working in different creative fields, you're learning those languages, which are going to assist you in making different and better art than just the default that someone's going to come up with.
Right, right. 25 years ago, people had to learn how to write good search queries in order to get the answers that they wanted, right? And now we're in a position where people have to learn to become prompt engineers. How do I write the correct prompt in order to get the output that I want? So it's a new skill set, right?
Absolutely.
And I think this starts to lead, Frincy, as you think about things from like the policy side and the potential and the opportunity side. Jason, your example about electricity, every industrial or technological innovation that has come along has changed the way people work. It has changed our work. And so we no longer are tapping on telegraph keyboards. We're tapping on keyboards, but in between we talked on telephones. And how do you think, Frincy, that AI is changing the way people work? How is the job market changing? Like Jason said, I have empathy for the junior designers who are going to be working in a very different way. And do we have a sense of what those different ways might be, or how to prepare for it?
Sure. Yeah, this is a question that I get asked at every speak sessions, like no matter where I go. Like, is AI going to take my job? I'm a project manager. I'm a customer success manager. I'm a marketing manager. Will AI take my job? So, um, if you look at what's happening with this advancements in generative AI, let's focus on generative AI piece, where we are able to like create content or question answer or summarize the different applications that generative AI has brought us in this last 1 year. And if you want to understand what kind of task that our roles could be replaced, that is where we can differentiate between what roles or how much of an exposure that our jobs could have to this recent advancements in AI. So there is a very good study most recently done by World Economic Forum, where it talks about jobs of tomorrow. So where they critically analyzed a lot of these occupations, the different tasks involved in these occupations, and then categorized them into 4 different areas. high potential to automate, high potential to augment, low potential to automate or augment, and there is no effect. There is no effect because of generative AI. So if you look at these different areas, so there are like these repetitive tasks, like if you do some analysis, or you give requirements and generates a design. So which is more repetitive and something that you can easily automate are the tasks that will get automated. And if your job is on that side, so for example, you are a data analyst where you always do similar type of task majority of the time, or you code in a different, like software developers, or like there's a lot of different roles out there. I'm just mentioning few, but
Mhm.
those are the ones that could get automated faster. But then there is also this augmentation where it is a mix of these human interaction, plus you also have this abstract reasoning skills, but you also have something that this AI systems can help you, like writing assistants or design assistant. And for those roles, AI will be like an augmentation. And you learn to use AI systems, and you have to develop those skills to use those systems in order to do and evolve better in your roles. Then there are roles where it is low exposure to any of these. Like if you are, let's say, like if you're doing some physical work, or loading, like, I have recently seen this advertisement about some construction company posting that AI is not going to take your job because you cannot be automated or augmented. So there are these roles where there's a lot of human interaction involved. There's a lot of thinking, creative design involved, where no data that is like in this finite data set cannot replace what the human creativity can create. So what I would like to summarize is that whatever type of role that you are in, depending on how much of these different tasks that could be touched by this AI automation or augmentation, those jobs are going to evolve. Like whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, it is going to get evolved. And we should be proactively trying to learn the skill set on how to use the systems, and then evolve as we are going in the journey of learning um, all these advancements. So I would definitely recommend everybody to test these tools and experiment. And if you've never done it before, like this is a good time. And as let's say your organization is rolling out a new tool for you, or a new play area for you to test, you should like take that offer and try it out. So as
Mhm.
your job get evolves, you also get progressed in your roles.
Right, right. I think I suspect that when you talk about it that way with people who are concerned about losing their jobs, that they take some comfort in the idea that automation does not mean elimination, that there are certain things that you are doing that you don't necessarily have to do because they are menial, they are repetitive. They could be done by something which is not as intelligent as a human. And what that does is that could potentially free up your time to work on the more creative or the more complicated things.
Definitely.
So parts of your job may be given to AI, but perhaps we have some agency in determining which parts of our work we surrender, right? And how we reapply our time and effort on perhaps more challenging, more creative, more complicated things.
Can I jump in there? Because
Yeah, please.
I feel like there's also something I think about being human, and I guess we're all human, but becoming good at or feeling a sense of accomplishment and pride at feeling good at repeating something that might be really mundane, like just getting really good. like when we're little kids and we learn how to walk, what do? We fall, we trip, we move constantly, right? We don't just start out being amazing runners and stair climbers. So we have to like attempt and fail and attempt and fail. And there's something missing there if we're just really good at stuff right away. And when I first went to design school, to my chagrin, first year, they're like, "You're never touching a computer." And I was like, "What? I just signed up for a year of not touching a computer?" And I had to learn how to do all these things in the darkroom that you do in Photoshop in seconds, and using a scalpel basically to cut frisk, which is was a thing apparently.
Draw a million circles.
Right, draw a million circles, draw every essay by hand, like learn how to do typography. It was crazy, and I hated it, but at the same time, I learned so much, and my greatest fear is that that goes away, or that people don't find that important, and then how do you feel a sense of pride in your work if you never go through the grind of it?
Is this really, are you talking about a pride of craft?
Yeah, like there's a huge difference between spending decades developing a style and then typing that artist's style into Midjourney, right? You get a sense of, you get a dopamine rush, you get a sense of like, look what I could make the machine do, but I don't think that you're going to have the same feeling as that artist, whether it's like Jim Woodring or whoever, right? It's like the feeling is completely different, and I think that it's like eating a lot of candy instead of getting really good at making a fancy meal, like a really nice meal, you know?
Right. There's the value of being differentiated, or of being new, or of thinking of something, or of creating something that is not derivative, that is
Yeah,
original.
even derivative is okay, because I think that that's part of a creative process, and mixing and matching and even copying other artists. I think that all of that's part of the thing. Um,
It's part of the fall and stand and fall and
yeah,
stand.
yeah, it's the making it way, way, way too easy is
Mm.
perhaps the thing that makes me wonder if you're going to ever really feel a sense of accomplishment from that.
Okay.
I also want to add one point, like what I've heard, like, or in the conversations, is that we are making our kids become more dumb or dumber than previously. Like, let's say we are previously they used to do all these calculations and formulations by themselves. Now there is a calculator, then there's a computer, or there's an automation that takes care of it. So this is one part of it. But if you look at the economic advantage of AI, or these development, from an organization point of view, or as a country or an economy point of view, there is a lot of things that you can achieve with this automation. And I'm not saying that, like, the creative part or the emotional sensitivity of humans, that will ever be taken away by AI. I don't think that can ever be replaced by AI. But it will be like a give and take. So you have to give away some part of it so that you gain the productivity. Overall, the organizations do things faster in a more efficient way, but at the same time keeping humanity in the loop, making sure that what we create, that creativity part is sustained throughout, and not just like we are not always like
Right.
creating from the same original content always, but we always also push out originality. So it should be a clear balance in itself, and not just fully replaced.
Right.
What if we
Right.
had a
There's a progression, right? Yes, Jason.
what if we had a reverse rite of passage where you're really not allowed to use AI until you reach a certain level of competency, and then you get to accelerate your abilities?
Definitely. I mean, that's totally doable. And I'm just touching back on my first point that I tried to talk about. We should not allow people to push things to market unless we feel we are ready to for the public or the mass to take it. So right now there is nothing that is preventing any organization to push things into market. In a like, for of course we are not pushing high risk system, but we don't even know today whether it is high risk or not, because we have not done enough validations. Or like recently ChatGPT started a platform where users can create apps, but then just like 2 days back, there was another like privacy leakage. Their PI data was leaked. So like there is like we don't know what it can do, first of all. And then we are still allowing it to be open and available for everybody to use. So that is where the real problem lies.
Right, right. And that the tension that has come up in the conversation so far is the drive to progress and the caution or hesitance about the risk or the loss. And the loss is like loss of economic loss of personal information or reputational loss of agency. Jason's concern with that sort of loss of sense of accomplishment and in doing something, right? I mean, if we were to go back 1,000 years, we could probably find people who were very, very, very good and the best on the planet at making ink and of grinding so finely the ingredients to make ink that would produce the most beautiful calligraphy. And now I don't know if there's anyone who takes pride in making ink. Ink is made, and the pride, we have progressed and we take pride in doing something else with the ink, not the making of the ink. And maybe one of the ways that we think about AI is that, yeah, it's going to do some of the things that we take pride in now, but as humans, we are going to find something to do to take pride in. And it may not be the same things anymore. You know, I do want to shift because there's some things here that bring us right back to things that Katherine talks about as well. And this whole sort of being human-centered, the idea that there are aspects of humanity that are unique to us. For instance, you said there may be things that AI never takes over or replaces or exceeds. But I think there's also one other aspect, and that is that we've talked about the things that AI can do, and we talked about it in terms of like replacement of skill or the generation of the seeds of ideas. But AI also enables a different sense of scale in the work that we can do. And there are problems, systemic problems, and wicked problems that are far beyond the scale of us, right? That if we were to do the data analysis necessary to understand some of these things, we would literally spend our entire lifetime and not complete it. But AI can consume such vast quantities of information as to do things that are literally beyond our mental capacity and our mental abilities. So Katherine, you talk about complex problems and you talk about a massive scale, like sociocultural change and ecological change, and how AI can be brought to bear in thinking about ways to approach and understand and solve those, particularly because a lot of these problems have a disparate impact on underrepresented communities around the world, right? When we take a look at access to technology, medicine, clean water, food distribution, climate change, not everyone on the planet experiences those issues equally. And so, Katherine, you talk about systems thinking and about complex problems. And how do you see AI as changing the scale of our work, not just the tasks of our work?
So when thinking about complex and wicked problems, I think AI can definitely be a great tool to use in the sense that it can empower communities and support cultures around the world. So one of the ways that can be done is to augment this process called systems thinking, which already helps us solve problems on a large scale. So it's basically systems thinking is an approach to problem solving, if I may explain, that considers complex systems as a whole rather than looking at individual components in isolation. So AI can really help with this process by providing us data-driven insights and predictions and make recommended outcomes. So, for example, it can, as you mentioned, analyze large amounts of data to understand, for instance, how different parts of a system are connected. And it can, for instance, identify systemic risk and opportunities using predictive analytics. So, in that sense, it can help with the decision making since it has that ability to process large amounts of data.
Mhm. Right, right. Jason, Frincy, your thoughts on the scale question, right? Are we prepared to be thinking about the change in our work or the change in creativity as being one of scale? That we can do bigger things with AI than we could with just our own brains?
For sure. Go ahead, Frincy. That's my
I know.
insight.
I'm thinking actually. Um, Definitely when it comes to data crunching, understanding patterns, understanding complex interactions between the data, definitely AI can think beyond what humans can do. And that is why all of this, like today it is called as traditional algorithm because Gen AI is here, like all these supervised, unsupervised, anything that we are doing today within our like forecasting systems or like your similarity systems or customer recommendation, none of this can be like done by one individual or like group of individuals even if they work hard for many years. All of this is scalably done by AI systems. And that is where we get the maximum economic advantage or productivity from. But at the same time, um, when it comes to like Jason's area or like from an art perspective or a content perspective where we need the creativity, there should be that balance between scale versus quality versus the innovative part of it, the creativity part of it. So that is where we have to think, what is our metric that we should use? Is it the scale? Like, do we want to produce like million images and everything looks same? Or do we want to put like 100 images and each of them have that quality or or feeling that we want it to emulate? So I believe like the application of AI and extent of AI is different in different industries and different roles and tasks. And we have to understand how much of it where that exposure has to be done towards
Right,
AI. Yeah.
right, right. Jason, you wanted
And
to
we're
extend that?
well, I had a little coughing fit there, but um, I think we're gonna still like even with systems thinking, which I love, and it does feeding all this data into an AI. We're still going to come up against the human gatekeepers, right? We're still going to come up against uh, the institutions that we've built and the billionaires that run certain companies. Was it yesterday? One of them basically said a big "f you" to all advertisers that disagreed with his opinions on a platform that he ran. Um, we're still going to have to deal with like the human control, even if even if the AI has potentially, better solutions. And I don't
Right.
have an answer for that.
No, I don't expect any of us to have answers on it.
Phew.
We may be very good at speculating about our futures, but we certainly don't have certainty in our ideas. I know we're coming up on 45 minutes in our conversation. We want to make sure we leave time for Q&A with the audience as well. So I do want to do a quick round of an ending question for everyone here. We've talked about a lot of things that AI could do and it does do and it might do and how it might be good and how it might be bad. Starting with Frincy, what is the thing you most want AI to do, but you think is still farthest out in when it will be able to do it?
So I would say my answer is similar to the questions when I get asked, if you have all the power in the world, what you would want to do. So like my answer for that always has been like curing all diseases, especially things that is affecting kids or like cancer, those kind of diseases where it is taking lives or taking livelihoods away. And though that is one area that I'm very, very passionate about, where I see AI can have a lot of impact in improving the quality of life. And if there is one more thing that I can add, it would be a place if AI can not just generate things, but also self-validate what they're building. So before it is ready for, production, like, going out, it self-validates and understands itself where it is going wrong. I think if you are able to reach that point, it just makes it a little bit more easier, and it's not just I mean, I'm not saying even if it's going to be perfect, but at least it just helps a little bit better to understand before like humans actually build metrics and systems to evaluate those systems. So that
Maybe a little bit better at evaluating and avoiding harm, potential for harm and avoiding. I like that the idea of the self-awareness and the avoidance of harm, a little bit like the laws of robotics, right? Do no harm. But there's also a little bit of Bender from Futurama, who in his dreams would say, "Kill all humans," is what we're trying to avoid, right?
yeah,
That I like this concept of you are focused on the preservation of humanity, right? It's like
thank you.
we're not replacing the humans. Yeah. Jason, Frincy, I know that you have another obligation and you need to exit. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. You're welcome to stick around for as long as you are able, but we do understand you're very busy. Jason, something you want AI to do, but which it's probably going to be a while.
Um, I think I need to really dial up my altruism. Frincy goes to like curing all childhood disease, and I'm thinking like, could this thing just coordinate my calendar and to-dos? That would be that would be amazing. It would change my life. It's very narcissistic, but I like the idea of I don't know. I like the idea of an AI that's able to help me optimize my life in the way that will be more beneficial to myself and therefore to others. And
Right.
that would be like with little things like even some of the stuff that simple apps, well, they're not simple, but apps like Pi, for instance, that um, are able to have conversations with people when they're feeling lonely, or um, act as these s- interesting intermediaries when it comes to feeling like you're alone in the universe. I think that AI can go a long way for that, but that's already here, so it didn't really answer your question. But I think being able to help people optimize their lives by actually examining a lot of the things that they do, that they where they could make small changes that they don't even notice, that would remind them, and not be a nanny bot, but that would remind them of the things that are important to them, because it's easy to forget those.
Right. And ultimately you did come back to this idea of preserving and recognizing humanity. You upped your altruism game, right? You
It
like
was just by
you
influence.
still wanted it to be in service of humanity and uniqueness and creativity and life and all of those things.
Thank you for mentioning that.
All right, and Catherine, what do you really want AI to do, but which you think it's going to be a while?
I'm actually not coming from like an altruistic perspective. I think I'm just curious to see how things like artificial creativity and like AI developing consciousness will actually unfold, just to see how we respond to it from like a philosophical
Mhm.
standpoint. So what's going to happen when we get to that point is what I'm really curious about.
So you are more looking forward to the moment when there is some fundamental shift in the capability of AI and what happens at that moment, but not necessarily about the AI itself.
And what will happen to humanity? Like, how will we respond?
You know, probably with the way we respond to most things, right? A little bit of panic, a little bit of greed, and then a degree of self-organization and acting at the very last minute for self-preservation. I think that pretty much reflects most of our history.
I think we should put you in charge, Dave, for when super intelligence comes.
All right. Okay. So, Katherine, Jason, thanks for your conversation today. Let's take a look at the Q&A and see if we've got questions from the audience. So I'm gonna pull it up over here. We see one here. It says, it said that AI is going through formative change and growth right now, much like a teenager. So, as a serious question, if AI were to get a tattoo, what do you think AI would get? This is where humans excel, right? This is our creative, imaginative moment. So if AI were a teenager, what would it get as a tattoo?
Sam.
Sam?
Just the word Sam.
Just the word Sam.
Yeah, like you'd get mom tattooed on your shoulder, right? It's like Sam Altman, something like that.
Just Sam, not dad or pops, but Sam.
I mean, he's not
Katherine.
really the mother, but
I initially thought of a yin yang symbol just because, like, I think that AI is going through certain things where it has to balance certain needs from like different stakeholders. So, like, for instance, like we talked about, like responsible AI and open source AI, which could have like conflicting and different
Mhm.
goals. So I think like being able to balance those two would be like what AI is probably going to be doing moving forward. So I just thought of the yin yang symbol.
The yin yang symbol. You know, the first thing that popped into my head, we do have another question that popped in here too. The first thing that popped into my head was, I wonder what the most common queries are. Like, would it just get a tattoo of the opposite of the thing, if it's a teenager, a tattoo of the opposite of the thing it is most often asked to do? And is would that, and if it did that, would that be like a sign of adolescence? And or will AI evolve? Are we imposing our biological models of you know, aging and maturation on a computational system that is going to
100%.
behave and mature in a completely different way, right? Will it even have adolescence? All right. So the other question we have here, there's a recent Pew research which has highlighted that a significant portion of Americans are feeling more concerned than excited about AI. So even though this has been the conversation for the past year plus for the news and media, maybe people are starting to get worried. And it's a noticeable dichotomy in public opinion about the impact of AI. How do you think product designers and tech companies may proactively work to shift these perceptions toward a more positive and trusting view of AI, especially when we hear about privacy concerns and ethical concerns? You were just mentioning about ChatGPT writing apps, and there was a private data breach that happened. So the question, how as designers might we shift perceptions to help AI be seen as more trustworthy, more helpful, and not necessarily ignore risks, but how to mitigate risks? And I think, Katherine, this might fall a little bit in your area too, because you talk about, you know, mitigating risk and what can we do to help people better understand AI so maybe they trust it better.
I think that definitely through like communication, like an
Mhm.
education and raising awareness that this is what AI does. And because people are mostly wary of like issues of like data privacy or like transparency. So I think that definitely that we can strive to make things more transparent and educate society and the public in terms of like what AI can really do for society.
Do you think that part of the concern is that it's difficult to understand what AI is, how it works, and what it can do? That there's a little bit of the fear of the unknown?
I think so. I think that education is really important, and in that sense, the way that we communicate what AI can do is like really key in terms of like messaging and like even like storytelling, and like using like as designers like using methods of like infographics or like data visualization would be like really helpful in terms of like communicating its capabilities.
Okay. And Jason, your thoughts on what we can do to make it not be so scary?
I don't know if we should. I think people should stay on their toes. I think people should stay wary. I think we've seen what social media can do, and this is 1,000, a million times more powerful than that. I don't think people should be afraid in the sense that it's debilitating, but I do think they should be concerned. They should be thinking about the ramifications and empowering themselves by learning and as much as they can and playing with
Right.
this fire, basically, right? Until they learn how to control it, and then they can feel more calm and they can have a better idea of what sort of regulations or whatever we need to put in place to protect uh, kids, especially, but everyone.
Right. It's been a theme in what you've talked about, the playing with fire, playing with electricity, right? Playing with gasoline,
Yeah,
whatever it happens to be, that we actually do know how to work with risky things. And we have precedent and we have experience. And maybe what you're starting to get to is that as designers, as product people or service people, as technology people, that part of it is how do we help people learn to be safe? How do we learn how to manage that risk? How do we learn to operate with it in a way that we consider personally safe?
yeah, and morally or ethically proper as well. I mean, not proper is a terrible word to use, but in a way that's acceptable to our own uh, culture
Right,
and that's
right.
respectful.
Yeah. So we've got just a minute left, and I'm going to come back to the creativity question for y'all because you are both designers. Jason, one of the things that you were saying, and Katherine, you were talking about using AI to spur your creativity and to give you a starting point from which you can then expand and build. Is creativity in the value of the idea, or is it in the value of the execution? So if Andy Warhol had thought of the idea of the Campbell's soup cans, and rather than painting them himself, had asked an AI to create a poster of 100 tomato soup cans, each in the style of a different historically important artist, would the output of that query be valuable because of the idea, or is it really the execution and the skill to do it manually?
I think you have to ask the audience. Like, I don't know much about art, but I know what I like. I think Warhol would say, are people responding?
I think that there is value in creativity as an idea because technical skills are always changing, always shifting. And, back in the day before computers, we were drawing everything by hand. And now there's like, digital cameras. There's, ways of doing things that are done digitally now, like drawing on our iPad is all like totally different. So I think that in that sense, that things like style, things like techniques can change, but like the idea, the creativity behind it, that's where the value is.
Right. We used to sketch with the burnt end of a stick on the wall of a cave to represent the things that we saw, and then we sat for portrait painters, and then we sat excruciatingly long periods of time for early photographs, and now we take selfies. But we still end up with pictures of ourselves scrawled all over the planet. All right, we are at the end of our panel and our discussion today. Katherine, Jason, and Frincy, who has already departed, thank you so much for your time. It has been very enjoyable. The remote fund continues. Spotlight AI is not yet over. The closing session with John Maeda is yet to come. So thank you both for all of the time you spent with us. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the FITC Spotlight on AI.